In a seemingly peaceful town where the elegance and perfection of the Pearson family are admired, a dark secret has been brewing. Sisters Azalea and Daria, once the epitome of unbreakable bonds, have turned their quiet rivalry into a deadly war. When the mysterious Isaac Murphy appears, jealousy and ambition begin to rule their lives, leading to a devastating plan masterminded by Azalea. The truth gradually revealed, and the story behind Daria's death made the whole town of Nashville shudder at the true face of the cold-blooded killer. Let's take a closer look at what's unfolding. The Pearson family was woven into the very fabric of Nashville, their lineage stretching back 4 generations to the town's founding. Azalea and Daria, daughters of old money refinement and New Age philosophies, embodied a unique blend of contrasts, yet each woman was captivating in her own way. Azalea Pearson, from the moment she took her first breath, seemed destined for greatness. She inherited her father's razor-sharp intellect and her mother's unyielding determination. Every step she took was one of purpose. By the age of 32, she had already claimed her place as a partner in Nashville's most prestigious law firm. Her name, spoken with a mix of awe and fear, echoed through courtrooms across the state. To the outside world, Azalea was the epitome of success, poised, polished, and impeccably dressed in tailored suits. Her calendar was filled with charity galas, networking events, and brief but calculated romantic flings. Yet, beneath the surface, those closest to her could sense a growing restlessness, a hunger that no professional accomplishment could satisfy. In contrast, Daria Pearson's arrival into the world was marked by a powerful midsummer thunderstorm, as if nature itself celebrated her birth. From a young age, Daria had an ethereal quality that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her laughter could lift even the darkest of moods, and her vibrant, emotive paintings adorned galleries across the region. At 30, Daria's life was a whirlwind of passion and colour. She floated from one creative endeavour to the next, leaving behind a trail of half-finished projects and broken hearts. Where Azalea was all sharp angles and cold precision, Daria was soft, warm, and impulsive. Her bohemian style and free-spirited nature clashed with the conservative values of Nashville, yet she managed to charm even the most staid neighbors with her genuine warmth. Despite their differences, or perhaps because of them, the sisters were inseparable. Azalea's stability anchored Daria's spontaneity, while Daria brought a spark of joy into Azalea's rigid existence. Their bond was one that seemed unbreakable, forged through shared secrets, childhood adventures, and fierce loyalty. They had always been each other's greatest ally and defender. As children, they were co-conspirators in backyard mischief, and as adults, they were each other's confidants through life's many trials. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. The arrival of Isaac Murphy in Nashville was like a stone cast into still waters, creating ripples of curiosity and excitement throughout the otherwise serene community. One early June morning, he drove down Maple Street in a sleek black Audi, the engine purring with the grace of a predator on the prowl. As he stepped out of the car, the town's ever-watchful group of retirees, perched on their porch swings cataloguing every new face, leaned forward in unison, eager for a closer look at the mysterious newcomer. Isaac did not disappoint. At 35, with his tall, chiseled frame and brooding aura, he appeared almost cinematic, as if he had stepped straight out of a noir film and into the vibrant, idyllic world of Nashville. Rumors about his past spread like wildfire. Was he a tech millionaire taking a sabbatical from Silicon Valley? Or perhaps a celebrated novelist seeking solitude for his next bestseller? The truth was no less intriguing. Isaac Murphy had spent the last decade as a war correspondent turned humanitarian aid worker, hopscotching from one global hotspot to another. He told the curious few that Nashville was to be his refuge, a place to heal and write his memoirs. The Pearson sisters first encountered Isaac separately, yet each meeting left a lasting impact. One morning, Azalea, the older of the two, nearly collided with him outside the local coffee shop during her usual run. Their eyes met over the rim of his steaming cup, and for a moment, the usually composed Azalea felt a flutter in her chest, one that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Later that day, Daria, the free-spirited artist of the family, was setting up her easel in the park when Isaac stopped to admire her work. His insightful remarks about her use of colour left her flattered and intrigued. That evening, as the sisters recounted their encounters over dinner, neither realized they had just met the man who would change their lives forever. At first, the seeds of rivalry between Azalea and Daria were planted innocuously, nurtured by the unspoken competition that had always simmered beneath the surface of their relationship. Azalea found herself taking her morning runs past Isaac's house with increasing frequency, hoping for a casual encounter. Daria, meanwhile, often chose the park near Isaac's regular walking route as her new studio, her paints and brushes at the ready. As summer wore on, both sisters began unconsciously vying for Isaac's attention. Azalea, known for her cool reserve in social settings, made an effort to engage him in deep intellectual conversations whenever they crossed paths. She regaled him with tales of her most challenging legal battles, her grey eyes flashing with passion as she detailed the intricacies of corporate law. To her delight, Isaac was not just a passive listener. He drew parallels between her courtroom stories and the geopolitical conflicts he had witnessed, much to her satisfaction. Daria, on the other hand, approached Isaac with her trademark warmth and spontaneity. She invited him to local art exhibitions, introducing him to the small but vibrant creative community of Nashville. On lazy Sunday afternoons, she would often spot him reading on his porch and run over with her sketchbook, playfully persuading him to model for her or share her latest artistic inspiration. Isaac, it seemed, enjoyed the company of both sisters, blissfully unaware of the tension simmering between them. In Azalea, Isaac found a kindred intellectual spirit, someone whose sharp mind could match his own, who could challenge his perspectives. With Daria, however, he rediscovered a sense of joy and wonder that had long been buried beneath the weight of witnessing human suffering. He revelled in her lightness, her ability to make him smile again. What had begun as a subtle competition might have remained benign had it not been for the annual Nashville Summer Gala. This black tie affair, held at the town's historic mansion, was the social highlight of the season. The Pearson sisters had always attended the gala together, a united front amidst Nashville's elite. But this year was different. Both sisters, without consulting the other, extended personal invitations to Isaac. When Isaac arrived, looking impossibly dashing in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, the air between the two sisters changed. Their faces fell in unison, and though they greeted him with smiles, the silent battle of wills had begun. Oblivious to the growing tension between them, Isaac greeted them both warmly, but beneath the veneer of civility, the rivalry that had simmered all summer was about to explode. As the night wore on, Azalea and Daria vied for Isaac's attention with an intensity that electrified the air. Azalea, ever poised and intellectual, dazzled him with her knowledge of wine, guiding him through a tasting as if she were a seasoned sommelier. Each subtle nod of appreciation from Isaac felt like a victory, but Daria wasn't about to be outdone. With a playful smile, she whisked Isaac onto the dance floor. Her natural grace transformed his awkward steps into something almost elegant, and the laughter they shared made her glow in his eyes. By the time Isaac drove away, leaving the sisters in the fading glow of the evening, a chilling realization settled between them. What had once been an unbreakable bond was now fractured by a growing competition. No words were exchanged, but both knew. They were no longer allies, but rivals, locked in a silent battle for Isaac's affections. As summer faded into autumn, their rivalry deepened. Every interaction with Isaac became a calculated move, a chess game played out in glances and moments. The sisters, who had once shared everything, now found excuses to be apart, each seeking to encounter Isaac alone. Azalea, ever the strategist, carefully crafted chance meetings. She adjusted her schedule to match his, casually crossing paths at the farmer's market or the bookstore, where she would draw him into deep conversations about war-torn countries, skillfully comparing his experiences to her courtroom battles. She thrived on the way his eyes lit up, captivated by her insights. But Daria, sensing her sister's tactics, played a different game. She invited Isaac to spontaneous picnics in the park, her basket overflowing with homemade delicacies that showcased her effortless charm. Beneath the oak trees, she regaled him with vivid tales of her travels through Europe's art scenes, her hands gesturing wildly, her laughter infectious. In those moments, Isaac's defenses lowered, and Daria's zest for life awakened something long dormant within him, a desire for the simple joys he'd left behind in his years of wandering the globe. What had begun as a subtle competition now consumed them both, with neither sister willing to yield. The rivalry between the Pearson sisters seeped into every corner of their lives, shifting the dynamic in ways that caught the attention of everyone around them. Azalea, once fiercely dedicated to her career, began immersing herself in community events, strategically volunteering for the same charitable causes Isaac supported. Daria, content with her carefree bohemian lifestyle, started eyeing more prestigious galleries for her art, aware that Isaac valued ambition. Their transformation, while fascinating to friends and neighbors in Nashville, also sparked concern. The once close-knit sisters were now exchanging subtle jabs and competing at every turn, their interactions laced with a tension that no one could ignore. Everything came to a head at the Nashville Autumn Festival, an event they had both helped organize, hoping to impress Isaac with their commitment to the community. Azalea meticulously orchestrated every logistical detail, ensuring the festival ran like clockwork. Meanwhile, Daria focused on the festival's artistic elements, creating stunning decorations that turned the town square into a magical harvest wonderland. As Isaac moved through the event, complimenting them on their efforts, the sisters positioned themselves on either side of him, each determined to win his favor. When Isaac admired a striking centerpiece, Daria quickly took credit, casting a smug glance at Azalea. Not one to be outdone, Azalea smoothly redirected the conversation, pointing out her flawless execution of the event's logistics. The tension simmered throughout the evening, until it finally erupted behind the catering tent in a heated argument. Their raised voices attracted the concerned stares of festival-goers, and even Isaac attempted to calm the situation, only to stoke the fire as each sister accused the other of monopolizing his time. As the festival drew to a close, the sisters left separately, abandoning their usual shared ride. Isaac stood alone, bewildered by the conflict he had unwittingly ignited between them. The competition, once unspoken, was now impossible to deny. The atmosphere in the grand ballroom was thick with tension as the auction began. Azalea and Daria, the Pearson sisters who had once been inseparable, found themselves locked in a silent yet fierce bidding war. The item up for grabs, a weekend getaway for two at a luxurious mountain resort, was more than just a prize. It was an opportunity to spend uninterrupted time with Isaac, the man who had unwittingly come between them. As the bidding escalated, the other attendees watched in astonishment. The price soared far beyond the package's value, the air crackling with the intensity of the sisters' rivalry. Isaac, sensing that the bid was less about the vacation and more about him, tried to step in. His words of concern were met with deaf ears, as both sisters were too engrossed in their competition to notice his discomfort. The auctioneer's gavel finally fell with a resounding thud, declaring Daria the victor. Her final bid elicited a collective gasp from the audience. She turned to Azalea with a triumphant smirk, expecting a wounded glance. Instead, what she saw chilled her to the core. Azalea's face was a mask of cold fury, her composure shattered, and her hands visibly trembling with barely contained rage. In that moment, something irrevocably shifted in Azalea. Her sharp, calculating eyes darkened with a hardening resolve that sent a shiver down Daria's spine. Without a word, Azalea spun on her heel and strode out of the ballroom, her heels clicking ominously as whispers trailed in her wake. Isaac, who had been observing from a distance, finally understood the depth of the rift he had unintentionally caused between the sisters. Approaching Daria with concern etched across his face, he gently suggested that perhaps it would be wise for him to distance himself from both of them for a while. Daria, her moment of victory now feeling hollow and meaningless, could only nod mutely as she watched him walk away. As the evening came to a close, the residents of Nashville buzzed with gossip about the very public falling out of the Pearson sisters. Little did they know, this was merely the prelude to a far darker chapter in the sisters' story. In the days that followed the charity auction, Azalea withdrew into the solitude of her home office, abandoning her usual routines. To the outside world, it appeared she was nursing her wounded pride, but behind closed doors, a much more sinister plot was unfolding. Azalea had always prided herself on her ability to compartmentalize her emotions and approach life with cool, calculated logic. But the humiliation of losing to Daria, combined with the creeping fear of losing Isaac altogether, had cracked her carefully maintained facade. For the first time in her life, Azalea found herself consumed by thoughts she could scarcely recognize, thoughts that both frightened and thrilled her. At first, they were innocent daydreams of Daria being sidelined by a minor misfortune, perhaps a small illness that would keep her away from Isaac. But as sleepless nights wore on and her desperation grew, Azalea's thoughts took a darker, more insidious turn. She began to imagine scenarios in which Daria was permanently removed from her life. These once shocking ideas gradually became more acceptable as Azalea's mind worked to rationalize them. Daria had always been the favored one, hadn't she? The sister who effortlessly captured everyone's attention and affection, while Azalea had been forced to fight for every scrap of recognition. In Azalea's distorted reasoning, Daria wasn't just a rival for Isaac's love. She was the embodiment of everything that had ever held Azalea back, every failure and every insecurity. The turning point came one stormy evening as Azalea sat in her dimly lit living room, a glass of wine in hand. Through the rain-streaked window she saw Isaac and Daria walking down the street, sharing an umbrella, their heads bent close in what appeared to be intimate conversation. Something snapped inside her. Any lingering affection she had for her sister disintegrated in that instant, replaced by a cold, deadly resolve. The idea of an accident began to take shape in her mind, an unfortunate, tragic mishap that would rid her of Daria for good and leave the path to Isaac wide open. As lightning briefly illuminated the dark room, Azalea allowed herself a small, chilling smile. She was, after all, an expert in constructing airtight cases. Surely she could plan the perfect crime. With the decision made, Azalea threw herself into the planning phase with the same meticulous attention to detail that had made her such a formidable attorney. She approached the task of eliminating her sister as if it were a chess match, plotting each move with clinical precision. Her first step was to establish an alibi. She began to cultivate a more visible presence in the community, volunteering at the animal shelter and joining a local book club, ensuring she was seen and heard by plenty of witnesses who could vouch for her character. Simultaneously, Azalea studied Daria's daily routines with the eye of a predator stalking its prey. She spent more time with her sister, masking her intentions under the guise of reconciliation. She carefully observed Daria's habits, her schedule, and, most importantly, her vulnerabilities. One detail stood out: Daria's solitary morning jogs through Nashville Park. It was a ritual she had maintained for years, and it provided Azalea with the perfect opportunity. Azalea's research extended far beyond Daria. She delved into medical journals and forensic reports, meticulously studying accidents that could be staged to appear natural. She became an expert in substances that were undetectable yet lethal, plotting every detail of her sister's demise with chilling detachment. The pieces of her plan began to fall into place. and with each passing day, Azalea grew more certain of her victory. The only question that remained was when she would strike. To cover her tracks, Azalea turned to public computers at the local library for her most questionable searches, meticulously clearing the browsing history after each session. She made discreet purchases from various stores across town, carefully accumulating the materials needed for her sinister plan without drawing attention. But as her scheme took shape, Azalea faced several close calls that nearly unraveled everything. Once, while she was mixing a concoction in her garage, a neighbor dropped by unexpectedly. Heart racing, Azalea managed to hide her work just in time, smiling through casual conversation over coffee. Another time, Daria almost stumbled upon a notebook where Azalea had scribbled incriminating notes. Swiftly, Azalea snatched it away, claiming it was a draft for a sensitive legal case. These incidents served as stark reminders of the high stakes. Despite the risks, Azalea's resolve only grew stronger. The near misses sharpened her focus, forcing her to refine every detail of her plan. She became a master of deception, maintaining a perfect facade of the caring sister and respected community member while secretly plotting Daria's downfall. As the weeks passed, her plan became an intricate web of lies and calculated moves. To her, it was no longer a matter of if she would act, but when. The opportunity she had been waiting for finally arrived on the eve of Nashville's annual marathon, an event Daria had enthusiastically participated in for years. With grim satisfaction, Azalea realized the stage was set for her perfectly orchestrated accident. The morning of the marathon was bright and clear, a flawless day for running. Azalea awoke early, her nerves tingling with a mix of anticipation and dread. She moved through her morning routine with mechanical precision, ensuring every action reinforced her alibi. At 7:30 a.m., clipboard in hand, Azalea arrived at the marathon's starting line, where she had volunteered months ago as a race coordinator. She greeted her fellow volunteers with a forced smile, her gaze scanning the crowd for Daria. At 8:15 a.m., Daria arrived, waving excitedly at her sister, any lingering tension seemingly forgotten in the excitement of the race. Azalea waved back, her stomach churning with the weight of what was to come. As Daria warmed up, Azalea took her position at the 5-mile water station, where she had been assigned to distribute refreshments. This spot was crucial to her plan, allowing her to be visible to others, while still giving her access to the race route. At 9 a.m. sharp, the starting gun fired, and Azalea watched as the runners surged forward, her eyes fixed on Daria as she disappeared into the crowd. At 9:47 a.m., Azalea excused herself, claiming she needed a bathroom break. Instead, she hurried to a secluded part of the race route just before a sharp turn that led into a wooded area. There, she retrieved a small vial from her pocket, carefully spreading a nearly invisible, highly slippery substance across the path. Satisfied with her work, she returned to her post, her heart pounding in anticipation. At 10:23 a.m. she spotted Daria approaching the bend. Her sister was running strong, her face set with determination. As Daria reached for a cup of water, their eyes met for a brief moment, and Azalea hesitated, a fleeting pang of doubt, a last glimmer of sisterly love. But it was too late to stop now. Azalea handed Daria the cup, watching as her sister continued on, completely unaware of the deadly trap that lay just ahead. Azalea held her breath as Daria approached the treacherous patch of ground. Time seemed to stretch in slow motion as Daria's foot hit the slippery surface. The accident unfolded with chilling precision, just as Azalea had meticulously planned. Daria's foot slid, her ankle twisting unnaturally, and her momentum sent her tumbling off the path, careening down a steep embankment. The sound of snapping branches and a muffled cry echoed through the woods, only to be followed by an eerie, oppressive silence. For a fleeting moment, Azalea stood frozen, the weight of her actions crashing over her like a tidal wave. But then instinct took over, and she snapped back to her role. With convincing anguish, she raised the alarm, her cries for help piercing the air. As volunteers and paramedics rushed to the scene, Azalea played the part of the distraught sister to perfection, tears welling up in her eyes, tears that weren't entirely faked. When Daria's limp body was carefully placed onto a stretcher, Azalea felt a strange, twisted blend of horror and relief. It was done. All that remained was for her plan to reach its bitter conclusion. News of Daria Pearson's tragic accident sent shockwaves through Nashville. The vibrant artist, beloved by many, had sustained severe head trauma and multiple fractures. She lingered in a coma for 3 days before finally succumbing to her injuries, leaving the community heartbroken and in disbelief. Given the public nature of the event and the presence of numerous witnesses, the initial investigation was brief. The police labeled it a tragic accident, and Azalea's flawless performance as the grief-stricken sister only solidified that conclusion. Her composed facade cracked just enough to reveal the raw emotion she so expertly feigned. After Daria's somber funeral, attended by nearly the entire town, Azalea took charge of managing her sister's estate with her usual efficiency. All the while, she maintained her role as the mourning sibling, but it wasn't long before the first thread of her carefully woven deception began to unravel. This discrepancy, coupled with the incriminating notebook, prompted Owen to dig deeper into the case. As his investigation unfolded, more cracks appeared in Azalea's story. Security footage from a nearby convenience store captured her purchasing odd combinations of chemicals in the weeks leading up to the marathon. A forensic re-examination of Daria's running shoes revealed traces of an artificial polymer, a substance designed to reduce friction, something that had no reason to be on a running trail. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source: Isaac Murphy. Racked with guilt over his involvement in the sisters' rivalry, Isaac came forward with text messages from Azalea. These messages, exchanged in the height of their competition for his attention, exposed Azalea's obsessive hatred toward Daria. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Azalea's carefully constructed alibi began to crumble. The final blow came during a search of Azalea's home office. Hidden behind a false panel in her desk, detectives uncovered a vial containing the same polymer found on Daria's shoes, along with detailed notes that outlined her plan to stage the accident during the marathon. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Azalea's icy composure finally shattered. In a desperate attempt to escape, she led the police on a high-speed chase through the streets of Nashville. Ironically, the pursuit ended at the very spot where Daria had fallen, as Azalea's car skidded off the road. As the once respected lawyer was led away in handcuffs, the mask of grief she had worn so convincingly slipped away, revealing the cold, calculating murderer beneath. The town of Nashville, stunned by her arrest and confession, was forced to grapple with the truth. Azalea Pearson, a pillar of the community, had orchestrated her sister's death. The courtroom drama that followed was a twisted reflection of Azalea's legal career, but this time she sat on the defendant's side. Her plea of temporary insanity fell flat, and the jury swiftly returned a guilty verdict, sentencing her to life in prison without parole. The story of Azalea Pearson is a profound reminder of the consequences of rivalry and envy when left unchecked. In life, competition can be a driving force for progress, but when it turns into hatred, it can lead to unimaginable tragedies. This case teaches us that negative emotions, if not handled properly, can overwhelm reason and push people down a dark path. Instead of nurturing jealousy, we should learn to resolve conflicts with love and forgiveness. Hatred and hurt can lead to heart-wrenching consequences that cannot be undone. If you found this story compelling and want to follow more captivating content, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, and let's spread meaningful life lessons together.